mi nombre es José y he andado recogiendo latas ya como 20 años recogiendo latas. Y para recolectar también dinero es difícil ya no eran como los años anteriores. Difícil para recolectar las botellas, pero ahora está difícil.
Welcome to the cities of the northeastern United States. Inhabited by millions, these are areas of extremely high population density. And within these cities, there are cultures coming from all parts of the planet. And this diversity is a sign of the mixing of ideas that take place in these cities. There are so many unique and interesting people that even if you tried to, you wouldn't have time to speak to all of them. And here, humans are able to come head to head with nature. And sometimes it's beautiful, but other times it's devastating. We don't know how to clean up after ourselves. Millions of people create mountains of waste. There's just too much trash. The majority of waste gets thrown into trash cans right away, or stuffed into small plastic bags, to be left on the street until someone else comes to take care of it. And this process is cyclical. People continue to throw things out. Waste continues to build up, and people continue to clean up after our mess. But this isn't the story of all trash. Every plastic bottle left behind, every tissue that falls out of a pocket, and every cigarette thrown onto the ground will stay until someone picks it up or it degrades. In the case of the plastic bottle, this degradation may take up to 450 years. To understand how we got ourselves into this situation, we have to go back to the early 1900s. In these times, waste wasn't as much of a problem. Trash was often dealt with just by throwing it into a landfill or by incinerating it. And on average, the waste produced by an individual was far less. Unlike today, plastic was rarely used. Newspapers weren't kept in plastic bags. Grocery stores didn't use sanitary bags for produce, and glass was used in the place of a lot of plastic products. However, this plasticless time rapidly vanished when polyethylene, the most common plastic, was created by accident in England. But the implications of this accidental discovery weren't realized until World War II. It was at this time when the rate of plastic production exploded, and new plastics were being invented daily. Everything from plane cockpits, goggles, helmet liners, tents, grenades, and tank components. And as one may expect, all of this fighting required intense plastic production. Wartime saw the subsidization of these plastic factories, which drove the extremely quick plastic innovation, which in turn heavily incentivized the growth of the plastic industrial complex. All of these new investments into the industry allowed for these items to be produced at scale at much cheaper prices than their non-plastic counterparts. Ultimately, This resulted in the booming of the plastic industry, while simultaneously lining the pockets of plastic producers. And this trend towards a plastic society hasn't been impeded by the end of wartime. Outfitted with new machinery and plastic production methods, these companies began to incorporate plastic into all parts of daily life, from food, beverages, and bags, and even the trash cans that we throw all of these things out into. Being far cheaper to produce, the public was incentivized to invest in these plastic alternatives. And since 1950, plastic production has increased 180-fold, and individual waste has skyrocketed. Welcome to the current state of our society, where you can't go outside without seeing some sort of single-use product on the ground. When these products were being manufactured for the first time, society at large thought we would have flying cars and hoverboards by 2025. Instead, we're stuck cleaning up the mess created by corporate conglomerates. This is Renee.
Bueno, mi nombre es Manuel René del Carmen Ordaz, trabajo en Show Weekend como manager. Manejo todo el sistema de carga y de todo lo que se trata del reciclaje y de operaciones y pues eso.
But Renee is humble. He didn't even describe half the work he does to keep this nonprofit open. Not only does he do all the construction work in this facility, but he also is responsible for keeping all the bottles and cans organized for shipment, which means he has to organize and organize and organize some more. All of this organization is necessary because of the subsidization of the plastic factories during World War II. Since then, the plastic companies have been continually pumping out an excess of single-use products. So here we are now, swimming in the waste of our own production, in a plastic ocean. This is why today, unlike before World War II, waste produced by single-use products require an entire industry to manage their disposal. Therefore, people like Renee, who organize our recyclables, are part of the few lines of defense we have against burying our country in plastic, all of which has been produced in the past 80 years. And the concept of being buried by your own plastic production is not alien for most countries. The United States has much less of a waste crisis as compared to other nations, but our systems are struggling. While it's common to find waste like this in northeastern cities, you'll be hard-pressed to find waste like in these photos anywhere in the US. And there are two primary reasons why we don't see this kind of pollution in the US. First of all, the US annually ships a third of its plastic waste to other countries. And secondly, the US has the wealth to have a robust waste management system. However, this system has been cracking under the stress of our production. But let's return to Renee. And through his work, we'll better understand why the system needs help. Renee is a manager of Sure We Can, a redemption center in Brooklyn. Redemption centers are run entirely by state legislation called bottle bills. These bills put a 5-cent deposit on certain types of beverage containers, and these cents can be reclaimed by bringing the bottle to a redemption center. And it's these bottle bills that are the most efficient form of waste management we have in the US. The problem is that these bottle bills are under attack by the very same people who are creating all of these beverage containers.
One of the things that is so critical when thinking about the bottle bill is that it's actually the same industry as the oil and gas industry. Industry is treated as so much more important than individuals, but that's what I really see this bill as fighting.
Ese trabajo en realidad pues nos ha cambiado, nos ha mejorado mentalmente a muchos, casi la mayor parte que se dedican a esto, empezando como por ejemplo con los recicladores para mejorar un poquito la mano de obra en la calle, la necesidad, total, trabajo es trabajo y la necesidad es necesidad. Hay que pagar todos los billings, todo lo que tiene uno que gastar aquí en esta ciudad para sobrevivir. Tienen que buscar una forma de cómo, en lugar de robar, cómo solventar una compra en las tiendas o en los alimentos o sus gastos personales individuales, que es una necesidad que a veces tienen.
So people used bottle bills as supplemental forms of income. But it wasn't always meant to be like this. Initially, these bills were intended to keep some litter off the ground and to help by sorting the waste before it reaches recycling centers. Both of these goals exceeded expectations. States with bottle bills returned 70% of their beverage containers, as compared to 25% in states with no bottle bills, where the government needs to employ people using taxpayer dollars to clean up the trash produced by single-use products. And to make matters worse, in states with no bottle bills, these beverage containers are generally thrown into landfills, even if they're correctly placed into the recycling bin. This is because without the system the bottle bill creates, the cost of processing and transporting recyclables is less cost efficient than simply synthesizing new single-use products. And this is why beverage container manufacturers hate these bottle bills. To make the system function, these manufacturers have to pay for the transportation of single-use products to recycling facilities, and 5 cents for every bottle or can that isn't sold. States with bottle bills clean up significantly more litter at a lower price to taxpayers, while simultaneously employing thousands of people. But then the question still remains. If these systems are so much more efficient and environmentally friendly, then why doesn't every state have a bottle bill?
My name is Alexis Goldsmith, and I'm the National Organizing Director at Beyond Plastics. I like to refer to petrochemical companies, oil and gas, and fast-moving consumer brands like Coke, Pepsi, Nestle, the world's biggest plastic polluters, as big plastic. And they are keenly interested in blocking legislation that would reduce the use and production of single-use plastics because it's highly profitable and because they are not responsible for the externalized impacts of single-use plastic, like plastic pollution in the ocean, pollution that comes from that plastic being burned in incinerators, pollution that comes from landfill leachate where plastics are buried, all the health impacts of plastic, from plastic breaking down in the environment into microplastics, which we're inhaling, drinking, and eating. Big plastic's not responsible for those costs. Big plastic has enormous resources because plastic is very profitable, and so they've hired special interest lobbyists to basically block these bills from passing because they want to stall progress on reducing plastic use.
During the last day of session, there were over 60 lobbyists from the plastics industry floating around
Vermont is incredibly important in the history of bottle bills. And we have to be here to understand why, historically, bottle bills have had great opposition from big plastic. In places like this, where you might expect to find a pristine natural environment, it's all the more disappointing when you see how our species tends to treat nature. Even though the damages we induce are often invisible to us, the ecosystem is constantly responding to human interaction. But despite all of this, life continues on. Biology shows its resilience in the face of human-induced and natural difficulties. But it's known that this diversity of biology decreases as human development increases. So, compared to the concrete patches laid over wetlands and the leveled hills that cities sleep upon, these areas are fantastically healthy. The pride that Vermont takes in its healthy ecosystems is one of the primary reasons why, in 1953, Vermont passed the first proto-bottle bill. This bill was designed to systematically tie the state to reusable beverage containers, and it was created in response to the ever-increasing demand for single-use products. However, in a short 4 years, this bill was destroyed by the lobby of beverage container manufacturers. In fact, in 1953, the same year the bill was enacted, an organization called Keep America Beautiful was founded by businessmen from the American Can Company and the Owen, Illinois Glass Company. Keep America Beautiful created massive advertising campaigns to prevent littering in the US. And these campaigns were extremely successful. The most successful campaign was an advertisement called The Crying Indian, which depicted a Native American man canoeing down a stream and subsequently crying when he saw how much trash there was. This Native American turned out to actually be an Italian American that dressed up as a Native American. But even disregarding this racial cosplaying, the overall message of this is strange, right? Keep America Beautiful is funded by beverage manufacturers. So why would the producers of pollutants create a campaign to prevent pollution? At the same time as when Keep America Beautiful created all of these influential anti-littering campaigns, they were also vehemently speaking out against bottle bills, which makes sense when you remember that they're funded by beverage container manufacturers. So, while Keep America Beautiful and Big Plastic spend money trying to shift the blame for plastic pollution onto public littering, the people who work under the bottle bill system clean up the litter. And yet, Keep America Beautiful, who claim to be anti-littering, hypocritically speak out against bottle bills. It is through supposedly environmental organizations like Keep America Beautiful that Big Plastic has been able to continue their unsustainable production of plastic.
There's an era, not so long ago, like 100 years ago, where we did not have all of these disposable products. And people just had a different lifestyle of how they consumed, what they consumed, and how they handled it. We have been trained to purchase and dispose of everything in our lifetime. Garbage is an international industry, and we're shipping our garbage all over the country and the world.
I haven't mentioned the most essential part of the bottle bill system. This is, of course, the people who collect bottles and cans on the street for money. You can either call them canners or recyclers. And 47% of these canners collect beverage containers as a full-time job. Snow or rain, these canners will search through trash for redeemable bottles, which allows our cities to stay cleaner and healthier. Despite the undesirability of digging through trash for most, this job is not highly compensated, and the average canner makes just over $5 an hour. This is especially unfortunate because canning often functions as a social safety net for people who struggle to make money via other methods. Looking at how many beverage containers rotate through this one redemption center really puts into perspective how many people are collecting beverage containers for New York's 750 redemption centers. And all of this may be convincing about the benefits of bottle bills, but why should we focus on an individual bill when the problem of waste management is much larger than one law or one company or even one country? With upbeat and fast-paced music, it's easy to forget that this is a real person digging through trash, and that people do this every day to survive. And it's even easier to forget that when you see someone collecting cans on the street for money, that they are doing work that benefits all of us. And yet, the social system that we live in does not recognize the importance of the work that these people do. Living off of $5 an hour in New York is not easy, especially when your job is physically demanding and requires you to be out in the cold all day.
Hola, mi nombre es Pedro. Y ella es mi esposa Josefa. Nosotros tenemos haciendo este trabajo yo tengo con ella 13 años, ella tiene más tiempo.
Desde que yo estoy reciclando siempre ha sido 5 centavos, 5 centavos. Siempre he dicho, este trabajo nosotros nos ayudamos para llevar un plato de comida a nuestra casa. Antes de otra cosa, soy mamá. Yo tenía mis hijos chiquitos y yo tenía que ver por ellos. Y siempre ellos fueron mi prioridad. Y poco a poco yo me fui metiendo al reciclo. Hasta que hubo el día en que me quedé totalmente sin trabajo y anduve reciclando todos los días, todo el día. Primero pasaba a dejar a las 7:30 a los niños a la escuela, de ahí me iba a reciclar y andaba. Y cuando yo los tenía en clases después de la escuela, los podía recoger a las 5 de la tarde. Entonces, eso fue lo que me motivó, porque yo vi que mientras ellos estaban en la escuela, yo podía hacer ese reciclaje y podía ganarme unos pesos para llevarlo a la casa. Pues el estigma de la gente es pues fuerte afuera porque pues nos tienen como lo peor de la sociedad, como que si no fuéramos jóvenes, como que si no tuviéramos casa donde vivir. Pero somos trabajadores y mucha gente no somos indigentes, tenemos un hogar. Tenemos una vida, simplemente esto es nuestro empleo. Creo que aunque ellos nos dicen que olemos feos, claro que olemos feo, porque andamos en la basura juntando, es basura como ellos dicen. Nosotros somos unos trabajadores excluidos, que no, para ellos como que si no existiéramos, pero si existimos, aquí estamos. Somos los que limpiamos sus calles de la ciudad. Somos los que limpiamos la basura. Somos los que hacemos el trabajo que prácticamente nadie lo quiere hacer.
This is the man who you've been watching collect cans. We did a written interview because he didn't want to show his face on camera, out of the fear of the social stigma that comes with canning.
أنا اخترت العيش في نيويورك لتسهيل الحصول على الأوراق ومكان آمن لي ولزوجتي. بدأت في جمع الزجاجات منذ سنة تقريبا، وعندما رأيت أن العمل ليس موجود ويحتاج تعلم اللغة الإنجليزية. أنا لا أحب هذا العمل لكن الظروف أرغمتني عليه.
Bringing up societal issues without giving solutions can leave you feeling trapped by the system that we live in. But the humanitarian, environmental, and economic problems caused by plastic pollution are not problems without solutions. Of course, one of these solutions is the bottle bill. I'm not claiming that these bills will single-handedly solve our pollution crisis. However, they at least represent a waste management system that has been proven not only to be functional and cheap, but also highly efficient. Therefore, states without bottle bills should pass bottle bills to undercut their waste. And equally importantly, states like New York that already have bottle bills should modernize their bills so that people who walk under the system can continue their walk. In the past 15 years, nearly 150 redemption centers have closed in New York alone because the bottle bill system hasn't adapted to the massive inflation we have experienced. And therefore, our waste is seriously being neglected.
My name is Ryan Castalia. I'm the executive director of Sure We Can. It's been so slow to modernize the bottle bill through a combination, I would say, of political forces that are actively mustered against it and a kind of benign neglect, let's say, the sort of neglect that occurs when something is functioning so well it can become almost invisible. And we're in that situation where the bottle bill, where it's the most effective recycling system we've had, it reduces street litter by a huge amount, 70%. That's been happening for over 40 years. People have become very accustomed to it. So the intensity of the situation that we had in the early 80s before the bottle bill was implemented, with overwhelming street litter, with waste everywhere, the intensity of that led to the actual change of the bottle bill being created doesn't exist right now. So there's almost this out of sight, out of mind attitude, which applies not only to the system itself, but even the people that operate within it, that allow it to function. I'm talking about the canners, where it's just like, oh, that's sort of happening, that's taking care of itself, those people are over there doing that somewhere else. And it allows a false sense of stability to be created when really action is actually needed. So there's that, in combination with, of course, the people who stand to benefit from the bottle bill's dysfunctionality or absence. And I'm talking about the producers who are creating and selling the material, who are financially responsible for its handling through the bottle bill, and who are eager to expand and optimize their profit margins through that system not existing.
This is where the bigger, better bottle bill comes in. Currently, the bill is highly contested in the New York State government. This is because the bill would increase how much the redemption centers are paid for each bottle they process. Additionally, this would double the bottle deposit from 5 cents to 10 cents, thereby doubling the wage of canners overnight.
Right now in the world, we're seeing extreme imbalances of wealth and power. So a very few people who have amassed large amounts of wealth have much more power than most of the rest of the people in the world. And most of the people who contribute the least to climate change suffer the worst effects. So that power imbalance is what we're grappling with when we're working on legislation that goes toe-to-toe with the petrochemical industry, like the Bigger, Better Bottle Bill and the Packaging Reduction and Recycling Infrastructure Act does. So we have to put power, we have to get creative about power. And I think that comes from using our voices and just not shutting up. don't have the money to retain dozens of lobbyists. We don't have the money to pay for fancy receptions to woo legislators. But what we do have is grassroots. And this is where the real firepower comes from, because this is where the heart and the soul is. And so every person who spends a few minutes of their free time to call a legislator to support a certain bill that will reduce plastics, every person who takes a day off to come to the Capitol and meet with their legislators, to attend a rally, to raise their voice. We have grassroots volunteers who write letters to the editor because this issue is so important to them. That is what our opponents don't have, because people care about the planet and their health and addressing the climate crisis, and they care about environmental justice communities.
You need to ensure that the people who support your issue continue to, and the people who don't, to try to sit down with them and try to figure out why they don't do it and convince them to change their mind. The way people are impacted is by people who live in their district.
I often hear from folks like, all politicians are the same, they're all scum, they're all getting the payments from the industry. And so what that means is, if you do think that that's true, you should be really working hard to get different people in office, people that you trust and that have a stable sense of your community and justice.
Emails, calls, meetings, advocacy groups, all the above works. I think what doesn't work as well is shaming people. I think encouraging people is a much better approach than shaming people.
I wish I could propose a different method for making a change in our society. We need to harness the anger that we feel at our unjust system. But the truth is that day to day, people can't commit their lives to advocacy. So we need to get creative. In a social system so large and complex, it's easy to feel a sense of powerlessness. But it's not true. And this doesn't just apply to bottle bills. Whatever topic you feel passionate about, go and do something for it. Use your voice.
Learning resilience is a really important part of this fight. And that's why, in a way, there's something to be proud of that we continue to fight for the bottle bill after 40 years, right? Because just because we didn't win it doesn't mean it's over.
That was so beautiful. Thank you for that. I really appreciate it.
Glad to hear that.
Thank you for letting me shove the camera in your face.
Appreciate it. And